Hi all. I just wanted to give you a bit of an overview of today's lesson. Obviously, I'm not here, but also of the summative task that we're going to introduce for you today and you're going to start working on. So as you know, over the last couple of weeks, we've been looking at really investigating how the human body uses both the nervous system and the stimulus response model, I guess, to respond to changes in our environment, to keep our bodies healthy, to keep them safe, and to keep them stable and to functioning properly. So in this summative task, which I'll put on manage back, but I just thought I'd show you here, is it's a practical investigation task. However, what it's really looking at, or the aim of the task, is this bit here. So your aim is to design an experimental method that can be used to scientifically and ethically investigate a factor that affects the human body's ability to effectively respond to a stimulus, which is commonly experienced by humans either internally or inside of our bodies or in an external environment that we need to respond to. So this task is actually assessing criterion B. So you're going to be designing a method, but you're not going to be conducting it. We might have a chance to actually conduct them in class after we design them, but that won't be for collection for marks and collecting results. So in essence, this task has two parts to it. One is a general introduction where you need to provide background relevant scientific understanding, and you see it really clearly here explained what it is that you need to provide in this particular task, which really obviously is looking at the nervous system, the concept of stimulus or stimuli, and how your body uses the stimulus response model to respond to that. And then really the exciting bit is that you then get to really choose or investigate one particular type of stimulus that the human body commonly comes into, I guess, interaction with, and investigate how, or investigate a factor that might affect your body's ability to respond to that stimulus. And then you're sort of working through the second part of the investigation where you are designing, in the end, what is an experimental method to investigate that a particular factor that affects the stimulus. So if I come back and just provide a little bit more detail before you move on in the lesson, in terms of when you get to that second part, I mean, you can think about this a couple of ways. If you want to look at some of the different senses or the common sensory receptors we have in our human body, I've supplied you with some links to some pretty cool, just sort of science experiments that you can use. You could choose a stimulus and a factor that might commonly affect on how our body responds to maybe touch on the skin, etc. Or if you're wanting to sort of extend this a bit further, remember, this is not something that you have to design to be done in our science labs. It could be done, think about really that your resources and your materials are unlimited. If you wanted to extend yourself a bit further, you could potentially look into some of these quite common stimulus response models in the human body. So you could think about something like the flight or fight response, which is a response that your body has to a whole range of different stimuli that might cause you to either be scared, to become anxious, to become frightened, become sometimes a bit aggressive in particular areas. So you could think about that particular stimulus and maybe how you could pick a factor and alter that to investigate it. Another one is controlling the body temperature. So briefly spoken about this, but again, you could look into this particular stimulus response model and choose a factor to investigate that might affect, say, your body's ability to respond to, say, a decreasing body temperature. And this other one I thought you may want to look at, I said obviously you can look at more than this, but particularly if you're looking to extend yourself, you can think of how does the body regulate water volume and concentration on the inside of our bodies. Now, interestingly, actually all three of those last examples are based on the nervous system, but also there's another system called the hormonal system that also is involved in helping our bodies to respond to stimuli. So I said, either you can just stick with the 5 senses, or if you wanted to extend yourself, you can look a bit further. So in terms of goals for this lesson, the first thing I want you to start with is with the introduction. And again, there's dot points in there. You can use the notes I provided to you on Monday as a starting point for pulling that sort of key science information together. Record, if you're using any external references on the internet, etc., make sure you record those. Once you've done that, don't go crazy with that. Probably 3 paragraphs is more than enough. If it's longer than a page, you've definitely done too much. If you finish that introduction, or if you get stuck with some of the science, then I'd move on and start designing the investigation, where you can either start to do your own research around, choosing a stimulus in the human body that you might want to investigate and looking at the body's response, or you can also start to look at some of the websites I've shown about some of the really cool sort of experiments that you can use to sort of investigate some of the 5 senses, and you may choose one of those and you might sort of build your investigation on it. So I'll be back in class on Monday, but your homework essentially really is to finish a full draft of your introduction, which I'll then check and provide some feedback in on Monday. So good luck. If you have any questions, let me know, but we'll see you on Monday.